My name is Kylie Jackson and I'm 35. So when I was 21 years old, I was anorexic and also diagnosed with exercise addiction. It was horrendous on all levels, and I was working as a nanny, but I was also beginning to break into the modelling industry, so that was something I did on the side. Essentially, it was an ongoing torture and prison within my own head and within my own body. On a practical level, it was feeling as though there was no part of me that was good enough and no part of me that would ever be enough until I achieved this picture of, you know, the image that I had set that I needed to look like, that I needed to be like, and then everything would be okay. And how that played out was me refusing to eat food and surviving on black coffee, no sugar, and exercising to the maximum capacity I could every single day. Every moment, every activity needed to be about how much exercise I could fit in, and then the next day doing more. I'd get up, I'd go for a 20-minute cycle, climb a lookout, because I was living overseas at the time, so I'd climb up there, I'd go do a 1-hour walk, cycle back, come home, do stretches, exercises, and then I would cycle to my workplace. I wouldn't get any transport. I would always make sure that I was maximising the amount of activity I could do. So I would cycle there. I was nannying at the time, so I would then take the child out around the town, would go walking, would go do activities. Then I would cycle home, and then if I was catching up with friends in the evening, I would do the same thing. I'd either walk to wherever we were going or cycle or whatever, and then we'd go out dancing for the evening, say, and then I'd walk home. They'd all be getting taxis. I'd be like, no, I'm going to walk home. And then I would sleep, and then I'd be like getting up at 6 before anyone could stop me to do it all over again. And that, even that level of extreme, you know, it's a complete overriding of everything I felt to begin with. But then it's the torture of the thoughts going, that's not enough. Tomorrow you have to do more. How are you going to fit in more? How else can you push it to the next level? Because that's not enough. So you're living in this prison where your whole world is identified by the thoughts and feeling as though that's not it, and you've got no sense of the impact that's having on your body, let alone anybody else. You know, I didn't consider the impact that was having on my friends, on other people around me. That gets taken out of the picture.
And what was your eating like? That would use a lot of energy to be doing that much exercise. So what are you eating over that?
Yeah, so I restricted food to the point where I wasn't eating anything. And so I was drinking water. I took out alcohol because there's too many calories, you know, so I didn't even go out drinking. I had black shots of coffee with no sugar, no milk. And so I'd have, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 espressos a day. So you can imagine my heart, you can imagine my state of being at this point. And then it got to a point where I think I'd had a visit from my family, and something had been said about me needing to eat. And I went, okay. So what I calculated was how I could eat as little as possible so that I didn't, because I was also noticing the deterioration. My hair was breaking, my body was changing dramatically. So I went, okay, how can I have nutrition without putting on weight but still lose weight? So then I went and studied. I went to the library, I went and studied all the foods, all the nutritional content, and I went, okay, I can have this, I can have my 3 blueberries, I can have my 2 this, then I get my vitamin this, I get my vitamin that. And so I would just, it was all calculation. I would have this, and then I would go do my exercise, and then I'd do even more than before to make up for the food. So it was it's a completely warped sense of reality, and there's absolutely no connection to, there was no connection to myself or how I felt. That had that to come second to what needed to be achieved. On the side, I was beginning to model, and despite the torture and the prison that I was living in, I was being told by, you know, agencies, okay, you're the perfect size 0, we need to get you to Milan, you're going to make it big. So I was being championed on a certain level, and that gave me fuel to go, keep going, okay, this is what you need to keep working with. And I remember I cried every day. I knew that that wasn't okay. I knew that it wasn't the way for me to be living, yet I couldn't see any way out of it.
At what point did you start engaging the services of Universal Medicine or attending the workshops? Were you still in the throes of anorexia at that stage?
Yeah, so I was living overseas at this point, and it got to the point where, you know, it was very clear that I was not okay, yet nobody said anything. I had a partner at the time, said nothing. I had friends, said nothing. And it got to the point that I was the one that called it and said, you know what, this is what I'm doing. I can't keep living like this. I'm gonna die if I keep doing this, but I don't know how to get out of it. And at that point, I wrote to my family. I said, this is what's going on. And they said, you need to come home. And it was, I resisted that even, but I was like, I have to do something. And so I came home, and the next day I found myself in a clinic in Brisbane for eating disorders. And that's where I got the physical support to stabilise my body, because otherwise I would have died. I would have ended up in hospital at least. And that's where I was seeing dietitians, nutritionists, psychologists, psychiatrists, 5 days a week. I was in there full time. And that gave me, I guess, a sense of stability, but on the inside I was freaking out, because I was like, what do I do with that? It's going to give me a body that I can live in, but everything that was driving what I'd been living was unaddressed. And my sister actually was seeing a practitioner of Universal Medicine Therapies in Brisbane at the time, and she said, look, I've been seeing this practitioner, I found it really supportive, I think it might be worth you seeing her. And at that point I was open, because I was like, well, nothing else is working. Even this clinic that is supposed to be the epitome of support, it's got a great success record, so to speak, of supporting people with eating disorders, this is not addressing everything that I feel needs to be addressed. And it was at that point that I saw the practitioner in Brisbane, and then went on to see Serge Benhayon.
Okay, so take us to that first session with Serge Benhayon.
That session was a life changer. For me, it was the first time I felt that I could sit with someone who saw who I truly was beyond everything that I was putting out, beyond everything that I had been told I should be, the way that I looked, the way that I should be as a woman. It was being met for who I truly was for the first time. And that completely put me at ease. And I knew that I did not need to put on a show. I didn't need to be anything for this person. The session consisted of us speaking for maybe half of the session, talking about what brought me there, what was happening in my life. And I felt I could do that with absolute honesty. And then there was some hands-on esoteric healing. And I still remember the quality of the way that I was, the way that I put myself on the table, but then the way that I was draped with towels. There was absolute integrity and honouring in the way that Serge treated me in that session. And that was something that stayed with me, because I could feel that I didn't hold that level of respect for myself. And I knew it, you know, I could register instantly that there was not an ounce of imposition whatsoever. And it actually made me quite sad to feel, to actually have that register in my body of how abusive I'd been. Because up until that point, I hadn't let myself feel the depths of what I'd been putting myself through. It had just become my normal. the process of healing was one where I needed to keep working with practitioners to stabilize my physical body. But then I worked with Universal Medicine Therapies to establish and build a foundation for myself, which was free of abuse, and one in which I could build a relationship with my self-worth and the level of sensitivity I held, because that had been so crushed by the world, which is a natural thing for a lot of people, that it's not okay to be as sensitive as we are. And so it was a process of having bodywork sessions to develop a deeper connection with myself and my body, to develop a relationship of honouring and self-care, because I can say as a child that was something that was very natural to me. But throughout this process of growing up and experiencing what I did in the world, that became obliterated. And so I needed to re-establish a whole new way of life that was one that was honouring, and not to dull myself or to fit into pictures or expectations of what other people wanted from me. One of the biggest things I got out of all of the modalities was the permission to express from absolute honesty, to honour myself and how I felt, and to then take that into every aspect of my life, to give myself permission to be who I am and to not withhold anything that I feel out of fear of not living up to someone's expectation. So life today is very much about honouring how I feel. And I still love exercise, but it's a walk with my dog. I do some gym, but there is absolutely no picture or expectation or something I'm working towards. It's a matter of how I feel in my body and listening to that. And there are certain times of the month where I do less, and there's absolutely no belittlement or thoughts that can come in to tell me that that's not enough, which is amazing in itself. And my relationship with food is something that I cherish, and I love cooking. I love preparing meals, at home. I love having people over. There is not even a thought that can come in about how much or little I should eat, what I should take out of my diet in order to change my body shape. Everyone actually loves coming over. Everyone loves the way I cook. Everyone loves sharing meals because they can feel how much I enjoy it. And that simply wouldn't be possible if I had a trace of what I was in. It just wouldn't be fathomable. I remember in the midst of this, that prison, feeling as though there is no way I'm ever going to have a life beyond this. I couldn't fathom ever being free of that. And today I look at that and can't believe that that was ever a possibility in my life, because of the level of joy, the level of freedom. It's like the freedom I have to express who I am and to not be owned by ideals, to not be owned by thoughts, to not be owned by how I should be living in the world, that is the epitome of true healing.